I think what Canadians expect in a circumstance like this, when mistakes are made, that people accept those mistakes, own up to the mistakes. That's exactly what I'm doing.
But you're
I'm committing going forward to work with the Commissioner's office. I think it's important to note that he confirms that no financial benefit was created in this circumstance.
Sir,
and no preferential treatment was given. However, I think we all have an obligation. All public office holders, all members of Parliament have an obligation to follow the Act. In this case, the Commissioner has determined that I could have done better, and I accept that finding.
Welcome back to Power and Politics. That was Minister Dominic LeBlanc's reaction to the ruling by Canada's ethics watchdog that he violated the Conflict of Interest law. Ethics Commissioner Mario Dion was investigating a lucrative Arctic surf clam license LeBlanc issued when he was Minister of Fisheries. The company he awarded that license to was linked to his wife's cousin, and Dion says the cousin stood to financially benefit from the grant. We are back with the Power panel. Althea Raj, Amanda Alvaro, Tim Powers, and Kathleen Monk. Tim, I'll start with you. Is this significant, and if so, why?
It should be significant because Minister LeBlanc is a senior player in the government. He's the third person the Ethics Commissioner has signaled out, the Finance Minister and the Prime Minister being the others. These aren't three junior ministers who, with the exception of Mr. Morneau, he's newish to politics, but he's in a senior role. He has very good staff. They all should know better. And you played the Prime Minister's clip talking about, you know, we're there for the middle class and we're out looking out for them. Each of these stories and rebukes from the Ethics Commissioner have dealt with the Prime Minister taking a vacation on a very exclusive private island, a chalet in the case of the Finance Minister, and a connection to a cousin in Mr. LeBlanc's. Now, to be fair, there was no gain achieved by the cousin of Mr. LeBlanc's, though from a branding perspective, this is the Liberals' worst nightmare if, and this is the big if the opposition can sustain it, first of all, and two, it takes hold with the public. Liberals' biggest weakness is always being seen as self-interested and trying to advance their own interests ahead of others. So far, they've had Teflon on it, but every story like this dents and strips away a little bit at that Teflon.
Would you agree, Amanda, that it's a weak spot or an Achilles heel for the Liberals?
Well, it is for the reasons that we've just witnessed, because everybody who's going to talk about it, who's in opposition to the government, to the Liberal Party, is going to frame it in that characterization. So with it, we get references back to the Prime Minister, we get references back to Morneau, and it starts to paint a picture, and that's not the kind of picture that the Liberal Party wants to be painted leading into the next election. Are there sanctions coming out of this finding? No, there are zero. None, nada. There's nothing but shining a light on an activity, and his response was, you know, it was a quick response to say, listen, I could have done better. He said it on Twitter, and then he once again said it out front of caucus. That's about as far as you can go with it. The problem with it, again, is the fact that when you ladder it up, when you start layering on these things one after another, the Liberal Party is facing an ongoing narrative that they have to justify or they have to defend at a time when they don't want to be doing either of those things.
Kathleen, I'll also quickly point out that the contract itself was dumped on a Friday, I believe, right before we went to air at one point, a couple weeks or even maybe a month ago, while the investigation was going on, but before this decision had been rendered.
Yeah, I guess I would say a couple things. I would say the problem is for the Liberals is they rode into power, into this government, saying that they would uphold the highest standard of ethics, right? And in fact, that's not what they've done. As Tim has pointed out, there's a litany of different cases. And in politics, it is the pattern of behavior that leads to the conviction. It is the pattern of behavior that opposition parties, the public starts to glom onto, that then leads to the kind of a smearing of the party and a branding of the party. But I actually, moving off the partisan stuff, I actually think, you know, in some ways it validates other concerns that groups like the fish, food and allied workers from Newfoundland have had actually about the awarding of these contracts altogether. And certainly the workers, as you may know, right, and from Newfoundland, the workers from Grand Banks are happy that the surf clan thing is reversed, and in fact are calling for more reversals of things like the sea cucumber. So these are questions, policy questions. I'm deep in the weeds now here
The seaweeds. The seaweeds.
Sea cucumbers and sea clams.
Urchins will be up here.
You know, there is a policy question here, and these challenges, and they've asked the new minister of Fisheries, Minister Wilkinson, to actually look at the sea cucumber decision as well.
Althea, what's your perspective? I mean, does Amanda have a point in that, at the end of the day, there aren't any sanctions, but do Kathleen and Tim have points as well that it's sort of the cumulative qualities of this that will have an impact?
Everybody has a point.
You sounded like a Liberal MP then.
Yeah,
we all have valid voices.
No, I felt more like a kindergarten teacher. But seriously, what boggles my mind is how do you not know better? Like, Dominic LeBlanc has been a member of Parliament for a very long time. He's a close friend of the Prime Minister. If you even know this person, I mean, his argument was, well, this cousin is not like a really close friend. He didn't come to my wedding. He hasn't been to my election night parties. If you know he's your wife's cousin, you should. I know, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at this point. You should know better. You should know that if anybody at all is related to a contract that you oversee, you should step aside. Even if Mr. Morneau was not found to have been in a conflict of interest with regards to Bill C-27, the fact that, he worked for a pension firm, he has a pension firm, that he has stock in that pension firm still, and he's overseeing pension legislation, the right thing to do is to excuse yourself. It's really not that difficult. And I don't understand why this is constantly an issue, not just with the Liberals, but with other members of Parliament as well in the past. And the Liberals really need to be careful. Yes, Gomery is a long time ago, but those ghosts can come back to haunt you just as they likely will in the next election.
Can we go fishing? Yeah, can we go fishing in the sea this time for a red herring? And one that Amanda has thrown out there a little bit, the whole notion about sanctions. There aren't really any sanctions that you can get a whopping $500 fine, right?
Although
the
Mr.
real
Dion
issue
wants to strengthen those.
Yeah, well, great, but there's nothing he can do about them now. The interesting thing is that there is no real political sanction. In another era, I saw somebody tweet this. Well, no, but it does matter. In another era, Bev Oda effectively got booted from cabinet for a $16 orange juice, right? So the fact that the Prime Minister, the fact that the Prime Minister has seen these ministers be sanctioned and nothing has really happened to them, though they've apologized, I think is a dangerous part of the layering of that brand that they want to avoid.